So this is the 55-inch Samsung S95D. So just right off the bat, it's a solid TV, and if you want to buy it, I highly recommend it. That's as fast as anyone can tell you. We did that in under 10 seconds. So smack a like on this video, and let's go a little bit deeper. So for starters, the first thing to know is when you unbox it and you have an experience that's comparable, like again, owning another Samsung TV from a modern year, this is going to be very similar to what you've, experienced and seen from Samsung. They don't really break the mold in any real way, especially if you've already seen a television with the One Connect box. Now, if this is your first time, yes, they do have the One Connect box, and it is nice to be able to clean up your media console or however you're wall mounting your TV. It's just slick, and it is a nice experience all around. Now, the footprint is a pedestal stand, which my personal opinion on that is it's the best kind of stand because it can fit any media console. The wide arrangement that someone like Sony would use would be a little bit more cumbersome, making you have a lot more tabletop real estate, which again, I can appreciate Samsung not doing, but you also have a little cutout under the bottom for a small soundbar. It's not going to be able to accommodate like the thickest, biggest soundbar, so you just have to be mindful of those measurements. Now, in terms of the unboxing process, it is really easy. I will say the stand is a bit of a pain to put together, but it's not rocket science. It, again, is something that I feel like should have been screwless, but again, maybe we're just nitpicking here. Now, the big superstar of this TV this year and why it costs so much is reflection handling, which is why, if you've noticed in the background, there is a reflection on the screen right now. It does tend to make the screen look a little hazy because of the way light scatters across the screen. It has a frosty, foggy look to it, and generally it doesn't look very good. You do need to calibrate this TV despite it already having a really immaculate reference accurate calibration already done from the manufacturer. This is just simply because everything looks flat and two-dimensional. If you want to escape that, you are going to have to really know your way around televisions. Now, fortunately, I've already calibrated the settings, and again, for my channel members, you can join and be able to see all the wonder that this TV has to offer, and frankly, what I'm basing the comments on this review on. I can say that I do appreciate that they don't force terms of service on you when you want to use this thing, so you can open it up out of the box and just plug and play more or less. Now again, the out-of-the-box performance is not fantastic. Before the television gets any real settings again, I can't stress how cool, blue, and just not the best. It looks lifeless, right? It just looks ugly, right? That this TV is going to look like. It just, if I could use a word, I would just use winter. It just looks like a winter filter slapped over the entire television, and there's like a lot of work you got to put in to get it out. But after you put that work in, which took me the better part of a few weeks, I was able to finally turn this thing around and start seeing some of the real benefits and then actually enjoying myself to a great degree. Now, as far as the calibrated performance, again, it is reference accurate. So you don't need to hire somebody if all you're after is the reference accuracy, because it does do that. Now, the overall image quality is superb once you do dial it in. The black levels are good in most situations. It's only when you have a window open where you're going to run into some really like hazy black levels, more or less. Otherwise, typically it's pretty darn black, and honestly, I don't have any issues with grays or anything like that. Now, one of the things that really drew me to this TV was the color. The color is really like well done once you dial it in, to the point where you just see a lot of nuanced colors that a lot of TVs struggle with these days. Now, in terms of like your highlights, that's the other thing that drew me to this TV over pretty much everything else. So you basically have the most intense highlights. It's over 2,000 nits, this TV, 2,100 plus nits in my testing that I got. Other people are saying this TV is 1,700 nits. I can't speak to how they got their measurements, but I can tell you that mine measured well over that 2,000 threshold, and it is damn impressive to see it happen like that. Now, currently at the time of this review, we are on firmware 1622. So if things change, I am only speaking about how the TV is working now on this current firmware. Now, in terms of sports, it's going to be like pretty much every TV these days. Not stellar, but not bad either. You will have some hiccups here and there, but overall, it's acceptable, right? Now, in terms of the contrast and the clarity, this is where things kind of slide in the inconsistent territory. It's a solid TV with a lot of offer, and I mean a lot to offer, but in moments again where there's like a lot of contrasted elements like tiles on a floor or checkerboard patterns, you're going to notice that it just kind of looks a little bit more blurry and a little bit more pale in comparison to something like the Samsung S90D, which is the junior flagship model this year. So that kind of does have a lot of people saying, well, why wouldn't I just buy the junior flagship model? That's an excellent question, and frankly, I'm championing the S90D to be the replacement. It's the king of kings right now. Like, it's the TV, right? And I think that's the thing to kind of take away from this. This is a great TV, and I'm not crapping on it at all, but I will tell you to save the money and buy the S90D because it's just the better picture, because they didn't do the whole matte finish screen. If they didn't do the matte finish screen, I have no doubt that the S90D would probably be the best TV this year. And that kind of makes me investigate it a little further. I look at how it handles, again, input lag, exceptional. Upscaling of media content, wonderful. The resolutions for PC, absolutely exquisite. PC gaming on this is like next level. I mean, if you are a gamer, right, you are going to love this damn thing for PC gaming. It's kind of all I've been gaming on right now. I use this as more of a monitor these days for my PC. Like, it's exceptional, right? Motion is really good. Not as good as the S90D, but it's still good. The audio, it's good as well. Again, not as good as the S90D in terms of audio. The weight, this is a heavy TV. The stand is a little bit more cumbersome. So even though they made it thin, if you attach the stand, it gets really heavy, which kind of defeats the purpose of it being so thin. So, I mean, it's more for those wall mounters that want a really flat to the wall profile. And this will totally give you that. So if you didn't want to go for something outdated like a WOLED, this is pretty much your only option for a flush mounted TV. And then, of course, the risk of burn-in is still there. And I do kind of have more of a concern since we're getting to record-breaking high numbers of how bright this TV can get. They have not mentioned anything about a heatsink or anything like a next-generation burn-in implementation. So we don't really know how it's going to hold up with time. I will test it and let you know. In terms of the build quality, though, I mean, it's made exactly like the S90C. And, I mean, that's either a good thing or a bad thing if you've seen it. It's made of plastic. There are not really any premium metals anywhere around the television, though I imagine that would contribute to the weight because the stand already makes it heavy enough. So if we started adding metals, maybe. I mean, but you could even like chrome brush some plastic and slap it around the TV. So I don't know. That's just a personal thing there. I think the build quality could go up a tick because it's a little, feels a little entry level. I don't really notice a difference in the build quality between, let's say this, and literally any of their other TVs they make at any given price point outside of how thin they've made it and the speakers they put in the back. But otherwise, it feels very similar. Now, in terms of the remote, you still have the solar charging remote. The UI is, Tizen, so Samsung's own user interface. And honestly speaking, you're going to either hate it or love it. Like, it gets sticky sometimes, it freezes sometimes, it's a UI, right? But most TVs typically have these problems. I think the only company that really doesn't is LG, because WebOS is just like the best user interface right now, but they don't have quantum dots, so you're buying an outdated TV, which kind of defeats the purpose. All in all, I mean, we have to ask a very realistic question here, though, and that is the price worth it? And I mean, honestly, for what you're paying and what you're getting, I would say no, because it's just too expensive. Given the S90D exists, I just couldn't justify dropping this kind of money on something that, I mean, has a matte finish screen being its biggest takeaway. Yes, they say they're a professionally calibrated display this year, Pantone validated colors. I mean, they try to beef it up a bit, but honestly speaking, it's the brightest OLED ever. That's how they should have marketed it. And I think if they would have done it that way, maybe they would have pulled in more sales. But I mean, that's maybe something they're trying to change with an update like we saw with the Samsung S95B. Because, updates tend to change some things that we probably wouldn't have wanted changed. But most people don't have calibration tools to measure to see how it was before the update. So it usually goes missed. But the point being is that it's just too pricey, and it has a couple of issues, mainly centered around the matte finish screen. And I think if you could get past that, I mean, and the price goes down towards Black Friday to a reasonable level, I would say like pick this thing up for like maybe $1,500, right? I would say maybe $16.99. I think that would be a fair price for this TV. But at the current price of nearly $3,000, that is not a fair price for what they're offering. It just isn't. While the brightness is wonderful and fantastic, you do have a lot of issues around it being a blurrier TV than the S90D, which starts looking three-dimensional. And I can't tell you the amount of times, having owned both, I look at the S90D and I go, oh my God, this is like the best TV I've ever seen in my life. And that means something because I don't glow over TVs. I'm not some commercialized publication getting units sent just for the sole purpose of telling you it's amazing to dupe you into buying every year's model. I'm a guy that literally spends his hard-earned cash out of his pocket and compares these so that everyday people like us who are struggling and finally get enough money to do something nice for ourselves can actually enjoy it, right? And just simply put, this is still an enjoyable TV. This is my personal TV. I did buy it because I do like the brightness benefit, particularly in anime and in gaming, which are two things I do heavily. And if you do those two things the way I do, you are really, really going to enjoy this. Where this TV is going to fall a bit on the short side of things is when you start looking at varied content like over the air. I wouldn't pick this TV up for that, even though they say they 4K upscale everything. It's kind of a gimmick and it doesn't really do what I would have hoped it to do. And that's just as honest as anybody could tell you, at least with that. But it does enough to where I would say it is worth it. But again, I would personally wait for the price to go down. That would be my tip-top, absolute peak recommendation. I wouldn't, buy this thing at full price under any circumstance. But again, it is still a stellar, solid TV. And I think anyone who has this TV, again, once they plug in the right settings, will be blown back. Now, again, I do want to also specify, I am aware that there are a group of people that just take their TV out of the box and are blown away by what they see regardless. And if that's you, enjoy it. But I will tell you that there is a certain level this TV hits at with proper settings versus without them that I think you owe yourself to see. Now, again, I have a membership here. It's $5 to help everybody out to get quality versus hiring a calibrator for $500 and getting raked through the coals just because he's greedy, right? So again, this is one of those scenarios where it's a public service. And I think if you really want to see what your TVs can do, trust me, it's worth it. Check it out. But either way, I think you'll see what I'm saying in the long run, especially as you start looking in the retail stores. You'll see like the retail lights kind of reflecting and scattering in a way that kind of looks a little hazy and messes up some things from time to time. But again, the moral of the story is simply this. It's a great TV, solid pick, and it has amazing, amazing picture quality. Again, but when you start comparing it to OLEDs, specifically quantum dot OLEDs, you will find better options like the Samsung S90D. Now, if you compare to LEDs like the Hisense U8N, for example, the S95D is going to absolutely slaughter it. So even though it has that frosty kind of look to it, it still can edge out some of the TVs this year that you would not have thought it would have. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. And if you have questions about this particular model or any others I've reviewed, again, ask down below. Thanks for watching the #1 brand in honesty, and until the next video, I'll see you guys later.